This is the Secure Cyber Connect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information, cybersecurity, technology and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives and offer advice and guidance. Our topic on this episode will be cyber incident management. Today we're thrilled to be joined by Lauren Wilson, one of the UK's most passionate and experienced new wave of cybersecurity leaders, with many years of deep experience and expertise within cyber incident management. With over a decade of experience, she serves as a trusted advisor to executives, enhancing organisational incident response capabilities, whilst providing operational leadership during many complex cyber incidents. Much of Lauren's career has been spent with the National Cyber Security Centre, where she successfully led the response to a number of nationally significant incidents against some of the most advanced threats. As head of capability, she spearheaded the multi-year development of a number of critical systems, significantly enhancing the government's national incident management capabilities. Renowned for a clear strategic and tactical direction, Lauren excels at building and leading high-performance teams, and her leadership and commitment to operational excellence have firmly established her as a leader in her field. Lauren, welcome to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast, and thank you for joining us today. Look, we always start with really just asking you to give us a very brief, high-level overview of what we're going to be discussing today.
Thanks. Thank you both for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and support this podcast and the wider community you're bringing together. I'm here to talk about something that I'm extremely passionate about. And like you mentioned, I've spent most of my career, if not all of my career, specialising in cyber incident management. And that sees me helping organisations on their worst cyber days when they're in the midst of a cybersecurity incident. And it's one of the areas of cybersecurity that often gets a light shone on it, not necessarily in a positive light. It's the stuff that kind of hits the front page of the media, and it's most of the public's interaction with cybersecurity, unfortunately, is when it goes wrong. So it's really important that we continue to talk about it, but also shine the light on the people that make it happen, the processes and the people that ensure that organisations have an effective response and hopefully mitigate and minimise damage.
So if you'd be kind of to, share with us something that you may be quite proud of or excited about, anything that we always typically find is not to be found on your LinkedIn profile, for example.
Yes, that's an interesting one because I'm trying to be quite transparent on my LinkedIn. So there's quite a lot on there already. But when I was thinking about this question, I actually realised I haven't spoken about the fact that I'm a mother. So I have an adorable 2-year-old who is a massive part of my why, and I love dearly. But having the caring responsibilities, like many people, is both a visible and an invisible load that any working professional has. And I just know I've really kind of spoken about it. And I don't know if that's an unconscious fear that people will see me differently if they realise I am a mother and have such another huge role in my life. But yeah, it's not something I've spoken about, and it plays a huge part, and particularly in incident management, when famously most incidents happen on a Friday afternoon. Actually, being a parent, the cyber incidents don't respect the nursery run. I have to be there regardless. So whilst I have a great support network around me that facilitates me doing this job and being able to give myself as much as I do to my career, there's still a load and a load of mum guilt as well, which I know many working mothers face. And almost as recently as last month, I remember I was going to lead an executive exercise in London, and I had to leave my son with his godparents, and nothing quite prepares you for the moment you're walking towards the taxi and you can hear your son crying in the background of, wanting mummy and didn't want me to leave. And yeah, did I cry in the taxi on the way there? Did I shed a tear on the train? Yeah, definitely. And I, potentially I didn't show up in my best self in that morning because I'd had a really quite emotional journey in. So yeah, whilst I'm not really transparent about it, it definitely does play a part in my professional life too. But thinking about motherhood, and it's I think a net gain in terms of the way that I show up to work. And there's something quite parallel with managing toddlers and tantrums and difficult stakeholders, and learning lots of empathetic, gentle parenting and patience actually helps you manage the most difficult stakeholders. So I think definitely it's made me a better human, a better professional, having those experiences, bringing up a small child. But again, it's an invisible load that I know many people balance. And actually just thinking about it, as someone that I really respect, another female kind of powerhouse in the industry, she came back from maternity leave recently, and she had a LinkedIn post that was like, I'm back, so to speak. And she'd realised on her maternity leave that she hadn't really broadcast the news of her pregnancy or really mentioned to many people about the arrival of her beautiful child. And she realised that potentially might have been through that kind of fear of unconscious bias, knowing that she'd had a period off, for maternity leave, but also, again, something that I worry about is that how do people perceive me, knowing that I have another huge part of my life, which is being a mum to a toddler. So it's something that clearly I'm contributing to by not talking about it. So it's definitely something I'll take away from this and something I'll look to speak more openly about, because it's really, really important that we show up to work as our whole selves, whatever diversity or kind of difference or responsibilities we have outside of work. And to do that authentically, we need to start talking about it. So yeah, I'm a mother and it's a huge part of my arsenal.
Important, very important. Thank you for sharing that with us, Laura.
That's brilliant. So, Lauren, what one challenge have you faced in your career that's perhaps significantly influenced your perspective on cybersecurity?
Yeah, so something I realised quite early on is the human factors and the emotions that come with what is often seen as quite a technical discipline, particularly cyber incident management. It's quite an emotive area of cybersecurity where you're dealing with people and organisations on their worst cyber days. And I just wasn't prepared for it. So early on in my career, dealing with individuals who felt such deep responsibility for recovering or remediating from cybersecurity incidents and interfacing with those emotions, and people were quite emotional, and having to navigate that with empathy and patience, like I mentioned, is two real key skills that we should all have in the workplace. But within incident management specifically, it's huge. Those people are going through so much. And being there either in technical capacity or in a crisis management capacity, you've really got to see the whole of that person outside of their responsibilities of this particular incident, but checking in with them, making sure that they're okay, because stress and burnout is obviously something that most cybersecurity professionals unfortunately have to deal with. But the kind of heightened levels of stress in quite acute cyber incidents is huge. And yeah, it's the human factors. It's the ability to be there for those individuals and it not take from yourself as well. But I remember in the early days working with smaller organizations and realizing that for them, not only reputational revenue was on the line, but actually their entire business might suffer as a result of it. They may not exist after a cybersecurity incident of a particular destructive magnitude. So yeah, and having to coach and counsel them through that whilst they're in a technical capacity, you can't ignore the real personal emotions that they're feeling whilst doing so.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that your organisations have got a variety of employees that rely on them as a source of income, as their livelihood. And I think there aren't enough organisations and professions that focus on that. They only look at the monetary value as opposed to sort of the firmware impacts there.
Yeah, definitely. And we rely on digital systems for everything now. I think gone are the days where it was just an addition to society or an addition to an organisation. They're an absolute fabric of how we operate, and essential services cannot operate without them. So when they are jeopardised or not working as designed, particularly if a cybersecurity issue has caused that, it's huge. It's huge for both the users, but also the organisations that have to rebuild.
So let's just strip it back a little bit here now and go back to sort of defining what cyber incident management is. We obviously know that, I think over 55% of organizations feel unprepared to be able to handle major cyber incidents. So for those who are kind of unfamiliar with the term, could you explain what cyber incident management is, why it's so crucial to an organization's overall cybersecurity strategy?
A particularly powerful phrase that we have in the industry has become more prevalent over the last few years is that unfortunately cyber incidents now it's not a matter of if organisations get hit, it's when. And organisations have thankfully followed suit in prioritising cyber incident management as something that they really focus on. But previously we saw kind of smaller organisations thinking they had nothing worth hacking for, and kind of medium organizations that thought that sophisticated actors wouldn't come after them, and then large organizations that were really reassured in their defenses and kind of potentially underestimated the persistent nature of our APTs in trying to go after them. So it's great that the cyber incident management is on the agenda for most boards these days, and I think a key way of doing that is something that I do quite a lot in my current organisation is cyber incident exercising. So I regularly run tabletop exercises for execs that bring to life kind of some of the key threats that we're seeing at the moment against some of their critical systems, and really helping them think about what they would do in that given scenario. And that allows them to test the processes they have in place, the plans that they have got, and ultimately identify gaps in capability and resourcing. And it's really quite an effective mechanism, and to get them engaged in the conversation, but also to see their roles and responsibilities in those forums when making some really critical and quite quick decisions in response to incidents.
And in terms of preparing the teams and, and making sure that these, high pressure situations, which they clearly are, how can organizations ensure that these are implemented into the team's mentality and prepare the individuals for this?
So there's some simple things that they can do in the DevSecOps cycle. So it's simply ensuring that there's security points of contact and system points of contact for systems that are critical to the business. Because for people like me in incident response, which famously again happens, in the evening, out of hours potentially, knowing who to contact is really key, and having that documented somewhere I can find it quickly is the risk of maybe spreading if it is something quite pervasive, but also getting in contact with them subject matter experts as quickly as possible, because those individuals are key to any incident management decision that we make. On the kind of larger, more kind of cultural thinking, it's again what I mentioned earlier around cybersecurity is everybody's job, and ensuring that they see their role in the kind of wider cybersecurity ecosystem. They don't think it's the people over there in that room that is cybersecurity, and that they sit over there and it's nothing to do with them. It's ensuring that everybody knows that they are the human firewall to cybersecurity incidents as well.
And from your own experience, obviously a lot of companies don't feel commercially confident in this space, and they certainly don't feel confident in terms of the sort of capabilities. But what have been the biggest challenges that you've seen incident response teams face during maybe large scale cyber incidents, and how have they been addressed? How effectively have they been addressed?
Yeah, so something I mentioned earlier around it often being seen as a technical discipline, it's not, and I really want to bust that myth here, that actually when it comes down to it, yes, the technical response, the forensics and the deep technical capabilities that organizations need to either have internally or have access to externally, actually it's the human factors. So thinking about crisis communications and stakeholder management, it's the stuff that can be rehearsed and can be done beforehand. And getting that right is pivotal. The less we do reactively, and the more that we prepare for in peacetime, so to speak, puts any organisation on the best footing, unfortunately, when they do face a cybersecurity incident. So ensuring that we have governance in place, roles and responsibilities, and we exercise those. Exercising should be a huge part of any cyber incident management strategy, and being really clear that it's both a top-down and bottom-up approach. So exercising both technical teams, but also executives, making sure that they understand the key roles and responsibilities they have in their cybersecurity governance, and ensuring they are clear where documents are kept, should they need them, and who's in the room making which decisions, and how that's fed to others. But yeah, ultimately, stakeholder management is probably the hardest part for most organisations in an incident, and getting clear governance and processes in place is something that makes that seamless. And the fewer people that arrive to an incident having not prepared or having not been engaged, the better. Whilst there's always going to be SMEs that might not have been involved in a cyber incident, because you hope that the same systems and products don't get impacted time after time, the core glue that holds a cyber incident response capability together are going to be some of the key individuals in the cybersecurity and the cyber defense teams that come together time after time, and they're the ones that really have the core skill sets that help those people that don't often interact with the governance and processes in place.
So me and Jay actually looked at some studies late last week, and we come across one on LinkedIn that suggested those that cross-skill and cross-train in domains are 70% more likely to move into leadership positions. So I'm curious to gain your perspective in terms of what core skills are essential for success in incident management and how can professionals develop those skill sets?
Yeah, interesting. So I started my career out in cyber incident management, and I thought it was a perfect place to start, mainly because you don't really get that deep specialism in any one particular cybersecurity domain. Because by the nature of not knowing what cyber incident is going to, come in on a given day and which system or part of the networks is going to be impacted, you never really get a chance to deeply specialize in a particular area. So I've always remained really broad in my understanding of cybersecurity knowledge, and yeah, it's served me really well, and I think that's a great place for most people to start in their career, potentially then to specialize further on after they've experienced potentially a particular technology or area of cybersecurity that they've liked when dealing with a diversity of incidents. But alongside the kind of technical core skills, curiosity is one that I've often come back to as something that's really, really quite important. And that's just being inquisitive and never settling for just what it appears on the face of it. And that's particularly really important in a cybersecurity investigation. And alongside that, you've got risk management. So risk management, again, is a key skill, whilst it probably doesn't look like other parts of risk management in terms of it's not under a huge framework. It's not aligned to some external standard. It's much more tactical risk management. It's from the point of picking up that incident and realizing what control maybe has failed or what control has been been circumvented. You are then trying to return the business back to that pre-incident state, and that is just iteratively reducing the exposure or the risk that has been realized in the organization.
That's brilliant. And yeah, we looked at some studies that Osaka put out most recently. There are some stats there that indicate perhaps those that have got mentors are 85% more likely to succeed and sort of progress into leadership positions. And appreciate some of your earlier careers went in that apprenticeship sort of route. So you going for that journey, what advice would you give others pursuing that path? Because we don't see many organizations offering that route at the moment to cyber.
No, you're right. And I remember when I found a cybersecurity apprenticeship, I'm one of those probably weird people that actually wanted to go into cyber. I didn't really trip and fall. Maybe it's a generational thing that cyber's a bit more prevalent and aware of these days, and particularly when I was starting out in my career. And actually, I remember when I told my sixth form tutor that I was getting an apprenticeship, and she looked at me quite confused and asked if I was going to be a plumber. And I was like, no, there's more to kind of apprenticeships than just plumbing or the kind of typical trades that you might have once just kind of associated with apprenticeship. So I was really fortunate that was offered and something that I was able to do. And again, back to how it's helped me in my career, based on the softer skills, being a kind of apprenticeship program is a cohort of individuals that go through not only kind of quite foundational technical training, but again, learning to interact and team projects, teamwork, the importance of teamwork and presentation skills, and is something that you get alongside the kind of more academic footing that you would probably get more typically from university. You do get some of those wider skill sets, and that's obviously really solidified with placements. So that ability to be able to have placements alongside the academic, it really made it real, and you never really lost focus on why you were doing the academic subjects, because you were learning and doing, and it's a learning style that really worked for me. But again, something to my earlier point around not specializing, again, a foundational degree that I got from an apprenticeship was the perfect starting place, because it gave me the opportunity to dip my toe into multiple subjects within the cybersecurity domains that gave me that really good foundation. And many people do choose to specialize after that. And like I say, I actually chose to continue to be broad. And again, that's helped me in a lot of cybersecurity to leadership conversations, is that I can turn my hand to quite a few things at a conversational level. I'm never going to claim to be an expert at all of them, but particularly in like I say, a cyber incident where literally any domain could be touched, I have that really great working knowledge, and I thank that to the apprenticeship giving me that really broad start and continuing to remain broad and deepening some facets.
No, that's brilliant. And look, as someone that's successfully built as well as led high performance teams, what qualities would leaders of tomorrow perhaps need to hold, or where do you see the positions will evolve in terms of the skill set that perhaps are going to help people excel in that role?
So for me, kind of being a leader, and particularly a leader in cyber incident management, humility and probably agility as well, are the two key things that I'd mention here around key leadership skills. And I say humility because I'm often making quite tactical, reactive decisions to a situation that's in front of me. And more often than not, I won't have all the information. Forensics can take days, weeks to come back. So I'm having to make quick decisions based on a subset of the picture that might actually be happening. And I need to be confident in my decision making, but also confident to know that I'm probably, hopefully not, but I could be wrong. And being able to be open about that and to be able to undo a decision I've made as quickly as I made it. And I think that is a really particular skill that leaders in cybersecurity, but again, specifically incident management, needs to get really comfortable with. Otherwise, if you can kind of get yourselves in a circle of, analysis paralysis and not being able to make a decision over the fear of getting it wrong, there's unfortunately no real place for that in cyber incident management because it is such a reactive and evolving situation. Humility is important in another way as well. So I actually remember one of the first major incidents that I ran at my current organisation, and with the secretariat, the nominated secretariat, who was taking minutes and actions for one of my incident forums, had to go to a hospital appointment, which, life goes on out, even if we're facing a cyber crisis. And actually, I just needed somebody to take the minutes and actions, and the CISO volunteered. He was like, I'll do it. And, just something so visible like that from a respected leader to the rest of the team, seeing that, no task in an incident is beneath anybody or, too big, too small for anybody to do. It's very much a team sport. And while cybersecurity is an industry where we're really good at coming together as a team, I think cyber incident management is really on the sharp end of where teamwork is really quite crucial. And that's just a moment that always stays with me. And it was some eyebrows in the room when the CISO was volunteering to take minutes. So nobody is beneath any particular action that needs to be done, and we just need to pull together and fight the nearest crocodile in the boat. So humility is really, really important. And as leaders in a really high pressured environment, we have a responsibility for all the team members, and checking in is really important. And I actually remember one of the same incident. Actually, I got to the end of the week and I was burnt out, and really visibly burnt out. And I was really transparent about that. And I spoke about how I was feeling and how the incident had left me feeling. And whilst that came from a really vulnerable place, it was really important for people to see the kind of impacts that it has on everybody. And hopefully that would help foster an environment of openness and honesty and safety, psychological safety, to be able to talk about some of those hard days, and that people aren't alone in struggling, because it's really natural, like as humans being put under so much stress in quite an acute period, it's a lot, and nobody is infallible. So being open and honest about that has been something that I've seen as helped other people. So I continue to do it, as much as it is uncomfortable to be vulnerable.
So that's brilliant, Lauren. Thanks for sharing. And myself and Jay actually read a report recently by McKinsey that highlighted those teams that are more diverse, like perform by about 25%. So first, I'm curious to gain your perspective in terms of how diversity within incident management teams enhances problem-solving skills. And I'm also curious to understand how fostering a more inclusive and diverse culture within incident management teams is beneficial to the observer's approach as well as the organisation.
So diversity is really important, and historically we've often focused on diversity as kind of a minority issue. I'm a woman in a male-dominated industry, and diversity for me has been kind of championing those initiatives that support women in the industry and giving them a platform. But actually, I think the most important part of diversity is diversity of thought, and that can look different for many people. And particularly in incident management, when I bring together a multidisciplinary tiger team in a crisis, that the last thing I want is everybody to be thinking the same thing. Groupthink is my worst nightmare. If I'm suggesting an idea and everybody's nodding at it, I'd hate that day. Having a diverse team that think differently, that provide alternative perspectives, and that might be because they particularly neurodiverse, they might have different socioeconomic backgrounds. It might be they've been in this organisation for years, or it might be that they've joined yesterday and they had a really great perspective that they've got from an organisation they've just come from. So that I think moving our conversations away from particular minorities to actually any diversity is helpful when facing difficult, complex problems, and cybersecurity is filled with them.
Love diversity of thought. I love that. Absolutely. Great. Yeah, absolutely. Important. So we're going to dive into some quick fire questions that offer practical advice and insights to some of our audiences. And I suppose one of them we always ask a lot of, I guess, is what other challenges are you seeing in the industry now? You know, as a business leader, as a cybersecurity leader, you know, where do you see things kind of as a big focus for concern and some positives as well, I guess?
Yeah, so I didn't want to mention any of the buzzwords. I told myself I wouldn't fall down the path of talking about something that we're all talking about consistently in panels and podcasts at the moment. So I'm going to try and make it incident management specific. And for me, something I've seen more recently is on the back of the SEC in America issuing fines to organisations for their handling of a particular cyber incident, is crisis communications. So transparency is really, really important in media handling, and both internally with stakeholders, but also externally with regulators and the media, and having a strategy in place before the incident. Like I mentioned earlier, preparation is key here. Is actually having a really strong communication strategy that looks at cybersecurity comms, media handling, and preemptive lines, and making sure an organisation understands the kind of interactions they may have with the media or with other authorities like the NCSC or law enforcement, and how together they can pull together effective crisis communications that hopefully provide balanced reassurance to whoever has a vested interest in the incident. And I think that's where those organisations potentially fell away with trying to overcommit or reassurance, particularly in early days of an incident.
For those people sort of starting out in the industry, as well as people who may be looking to advance their careers, is there any advice you could give individuals such as that you feel may benefit them?
Yeah, I think I tell people to never stop being curious. I think it's particularly in our industry, which is so fast moving and evolves so quickly, either new technology advancements or threat actors changing methodology. We can't ever rest on learning and adapting. So being curious and open to change is really, really important. I know that's quite foundational and more on the softer side, but it's something that's really, really important. And in terms of kind of starting out and career advice, I often tell people just to find what they're good at, and potentially that might not look like a specific role. I know people starting out find it really difficult if they don't have a clear career plan. Our industry, whilst it's trying to professionalize skills development, we don't necessarily have a really clear framework that provides, step 1, 2, and 3 to excel in cybersecurity. So yeah, whilst you can learn most things, some of the softer skills are the most important. So yes, whilst being curious is important, I think ensuring you gravitate towards what you're naturally good at, because you bring your best self when you are doing what you enjoy, and trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, which I was guilty of earlier on in my career when I just wanted to be good at certain things, and actually no, my skill set just wasn't in those areas that I wanted to be good at. Actually, if I listened to myself and feedback from others, and I kind of focused more so on what I was naturally gifted at doing and honed those skills, that's where I've seen most success. And I think we're often pushed down particular paths, maybe by organisations that have a need for certain types of people in certain roles. But if we continue to pursue what naturally we're good at, I think we can bring real insight and value to organisations in many ways.
That's brilliant. And sort of fairly briefly, amongst your peers or associates, are there any sort of tools or free resource out there that's exciting at the moment, or you feel sort of could be value to others that are listening?
Yeah, so I think LinkedIn is a haven of loads of materials to help, and just following the right accounts and the right vendors will give you some really good insight. But I'm a big podcast fan, and maybe why I'm here, but I find listening to content really, really helpful. And actually, some of the most interesting content I've heard or read is actually from different disciplines. Just thinking, actually, some of the most inspirational stuff I've heard is actually from a guy called Rory Sutherland, who's a marketeer. He's big in marketing, but some of his principles and his views on human behaviour has really kind of challenged me to think differently. So I'd say don't just look for specific cybersecurity stuff, continue to learn it in all facets. And I think being a well-rounded individual is probably is key in the broader disciplines of cybersecurity in most senses.
And we've asked quite a number of our guests on various episodes about sort of analogies. We know effective communication with C-level is always critical to any transformations, and we often use analogies like castle and moat and car brakes, and certainly within security, it's full of analogies. What's your go-to analogy for simplifying technical concepts, or just in general, what's your favourite analogy within the space?
Yeah, good question. So I often, and if not always, use fire in houses, which is a bit of an odd one, but I don't know when I started using it, but it works and it resonates with people. And I think it's because we can all have that real visual image of a burning house. And I think some of the kind of parallels are helpful to explain cyber incident management concepts and kind of approaches to take. So, for example, we can't just focus on the obvious, burning sofa that's right in front of us. There might be embers of another fire starting in another room. And whilst it's really important to understand how the fire started, actually we need to just get the fire under control in the first instance. And then things like talking about the smoke alarms and the effectiveness of smoke alarms and testing of the smoke alarms, likening those smoke alarms to other network security appliances is really helpful to explain those concepts to senior leaders or execs that might not have that cybersecurity knowledge.
That's brilliant. And sort of as we sort of move to the back end of the session, could you perhaps share with us final thoughts or advice and guidance that you perhaps would share with other parents or mothers that are sort of returning to work, more broadly speaking, returning to technical focused roles?
Yeah, advice that I'd give. I suppose I often do remind myself there's 101 reasons why people might not be showing up on a given day with 100% zest for life and love for the job and caring responsibilities is one of those things. But there's so many reasons why people might not be able to give their 100%, and remembering that whilst it does potentially impact in a less than ideal way, like I mentioned earlier, it gives you so much more life experience and skills that you probably wouldn't get from anywhere else. So being a mother or whatever other responsibilities people have in their lives as a great addition to our personal, to our professional lives. And it's just another great skill in your arsenal that you can bring to complex problems. And I think it's really important to find your tribe, to find people that maybe have similar caring responsibilities and pull on them when you need them. And I know I mentioned earlier about my teary taxi and train ride when I was having quite a difficult morning being a mother and a cybersecurity professional. And the first thing I did was reach out to other women in the field that I knew had either experienced something similar or had experience of those moments of mum guilt, and just normalizing it and feeling okay about it, and remembering that actually my son is part of my why, and that drives me and keeps me passionate and ambitious. And the industry gets so much from me because of that passion and enthusiasm. So yeah, just it's me, it's who I am, and I know wouldn't be bringing my whole self if it wasn't a huge part of me, and seeing it as again just another string to my bow and in terms of my diverse skill set. And another challenge that I think we have, or people that have caring responsibilities, is the ability to participate in some of the wider opportunities that we all benefit from. So as an industry, cybersecurity, we're really good at putting on great events, networking events and stuff out of hours. And I've benefited from them. Some of the most great relationships have come from those networking interactions at those organised events and that have been after hours. And I'm really fortunate that I've got a support system around me that can pick up childcare for me so I can attend those events. But I know that's not the case for everybody. So there's something here as an industry we need to really look at, is how necessary is some of that stuff to consistently happen after 5 o'clock? Is there anything we can do to maximise lunch breaks or carving out time for employees to go to events that happen during the working day? Because I think we are excluding a large proportion of the industry that have a variety of responsibilities outside of 9 to 5. And if those events are exclusively in those times, then there's real talent that we're missing out on, and potentially holding people back by not allowing them to participate in those really, really valuable opportunities.
And what does the future hold for you, Lauren?
The future. So the short, medium-term plan is to continue pursuing all the skills and experience I need to become a CISO. That's my career aspiration. And hopefully I'm well on my way. I've continued to remain really broad in my application of cybersecurity, and incident management hopefully is a great discipline that I focused on that continues to foster the skills that I see the most seasoned CISOs using every day. So crisis management and firefighting, prioritization, stakeholder management. And so hopefully I'm on my way to ultimately fulfilling that ambition. And actually I was recognized by Hot Topics as one of the top 100 future CISOs. So some recognition there that I'm doing something right at least. But yeah, and then gaining those CISO roles and moving from organization to organization and helping them solve whatever challenges and either increasing cybersecurity maturity across the board or particular. So yeah, once I've gained that, I suppose just moving from organizations and trying to add value wherever. And I'm quite mission focused. So being a CISO for an organization that has a real clear sense of mission and purpose is really important to me. So yes, trying to spread my cybersecurity knowledge amongst different organizations and different sectors, and hopefully leave a mark on the industry.
Absolutely, yeah. And you've been, it's been great with today with some really fascinating insights into obviously incident management and also in terms of how to balance being a working mum with a highly successful career. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And obviously, Lauren, for our communities and all our listeners, if they want to stay connected with you beyond this episode of the podcast, where else can they reach you?
LinkedIn. I'm trying to make more use of LinkedIn at the moment. So yeah, hopefully releasing some more blog posts on all things cyber incident management and beyond.
And we'd like to thank you, the community, all our listeners. We're certain that you found a lot of value in today's session. If people want to continue the discussion and for more sustained engagement, we invite you to join the Secure Cyber Connect community. As always, offering a range of collaborative solutions for technology and security professionals at no cost. We have expansive community access, cross-section mutual mentoring programs, weekly online networking sessions, and a range of exclusive interviews, panel discussions, and masterclasses. If you want to know more or gain access to the community and any of our initiatives, please visit secure-recruitment.com/cyber-connect/. Thank you very much.